Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Newsgram. Remember when you were a kid and somebody asked you the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you remember what you answered? Was it a security guard at the bank, or product tester for a medical company, or how about underwater welding specialist? No, of course not. Unless your parents did any of those jobs, you probably didn't even know they existed. Most kids today say they want to be a police officer or a firefighter. Some say doctor or astronaut. Lots of kids want to be athletes and actors, and even more want to be veterinarians because, well, they love animals. And that's where our story begins today.
Always a bit worrying when you get those middle of the night ones because you know it's going to be serious.
That's Natasha Burrell, a veterinary surgeon, remembering the time she got one of those dreaded late-night calls that an animal was in need of emergency surgery. This time, it was a cat, and the cat had been hit by an ambulance.
Probably around about 2010, this actually happened. It's the only animal patient I've ever had arrive at the clinic in the middle of the night in a human ambulance with a paramedic, and the paramedics had, treated him so well. He'd had oxygen, he was all wrapped up, he was getting the 5-star paramedic treatment, and he was just a lovely cat. He was a real smoochy, friendly, cooperative patient, and even though we couldn't find the owner, everyone at the clinic was so committed to giving this cat another chance. I mean, he had a pretty serious injury.
This story is now the subject of her book, St. John the Ambulance Cat, based on a true story. And if you're following the timeline, you might be wondering, well, why now? This happened nearly 15 years ago.
I have 3 school-age children, and my youngest daughter is 8, and I was asked to give a talk to her class about being a vet last year, and part of that I decided to tell the story of the cat that we called St. John. The kids just really seemed to enjoy his story. They asked wonderful questions, and I kind of thought it would make a good book. Like, it's quite an unusual story from the point of view of what happened to the cat, and happy ending as well. So, yeah.
Just to recap a bit, it's right around 2010 in Dunedin, New Zealand. Dunedin is located way down on the South Island's southeast coast. An ambulance is being dispatched to help a person in need when it accidentally hits a cat.
It was a bit more complicated than the story, because obviously they had to get an ambulance quickly to the human patient, so another ambulance was diverted straight to the human patient. St. John actually went back to the hospital, got transferred to another ambulance and came out to the vet clinic. But the paramedic that was driving the ambulance came into the clinic the next day and asked how he was, and because we couldn't find an owner, she offered to pay for his treatment, and after he'd recovered enough, she actually took him home, and he lived with her for quite a few years. Apparently, I talked to the paramedic recently, apparently he still had a bit of a limp. He wasn't ever 100%, but she changed his name to Ollie.
St. John was the name of the ambulance company, and while the nurses originally named him that, she worked for St. John, so she decided she was going to give it a different name. When I first came across this story, I thought it was a bit unusual to make a children's book out of a tragedy.
It was very hard to write a children's book where you're actually starting by running over a cat.
I can imagine. But when you see it, you'll understand. It's a true story with a happy ending. And like I said in the beginning, it's one of those professions that children find most interesting. So this is kind of a real-life example, told from a young person's perspective, of course, of what the job might entail.
I just wanted it to be a simple story that they could follow along and just see what stages, goes through with the treatment for an injury. And I wanted to be realistic, but still try and aim it at a child's level of understanding.
And she's done a wonderful job. There's really nothing graphic at all in the book. Plus, it gets them talking and sharing experiences of their own.
When I read to my daughter's class, a lot of the kids started to tell me their own stories of their animals, if they'd been to the vet and what had been wrong with them. And I think grandparents would be the same. You know, you can relate to things that you've been through with your animals in the past. And yeah.
And I don't think you could ask for more than that. A heartwarming tale based on a true story about how one day a tragedy was turned into a triumph of love, teamwork, caring, compassion, and companionship. Of course, if you're explaining it to kids, Natasha has a much better way of saying it.
It's a true story. So I tell them it's about a cat's veterinary tale, basically. His treatment through coming into the vet clinic to when he found a home. And it's sort of a glimpse into what a veterinary case may be like.
The book is called St. John the Ambulance Cat, based on a true story by Natasha Burrell. It's available now at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and all the other places online where you like to shop for books. And that will do it for this edition of Newsgram from WebTalkRadio.com.